Good evening. It is great to be here tonight. I'm excited to be here to be able to deliver this message to you tonight. If you would, go ahead and turn over to Exodus chapter 18. That's where we're going to read and see a few things. In Exodus chapter 3 is the first time we're introduced to a man named Jethro. Now, if you don't know who Jethro is, wow, that was really weird right there. If you don't know who Jethro is the father-in-law of Moses. When we're introduced to him in chapter 3, Moses is out taking care of Jethro's sheep. So we see that take place, and then we see over in chapter 4, that's where Moses has just encountered the burning bush, and he's getting ready to go to Egypt to deliver the people out of Egyptian bondage. You see, the relationship we're going to talk about for just a few minutes between Moses and Jethro is this father-in-law, son-in-law relationship. Now, I don't know about many of you, but I can tell you I'm blessed with that relationship. Anytime I'm studying and I encounter something in Scripture that I might have a question about, that I'm not sure about, all I have to do is pick up the phone and I can call my father-in-law. And he will discuss things, and sometimes he'll say, hey, give me a minute and I'll call you back. And then he'll go and he'll dig through some information that he has and maybe look it up on the internet, whatever, and just to make sure that we can learn and grow together. So I'm very blessed in that. When we look at this relationship here, where I want to jump in is chapter 18. In chapter 18, we go down to around verses 8 and 9. I want you to see what takes place here. Around this time, Moses has come back, and all the greatness that has happened in Egypt, he gets to come back and tell Jethro about. And Jethro is hearing about it. And so when we look at it, he sees this, and look what happens. It says, Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptian for Israel's sake, and all the hardship that had befallen them on the journey, and how the Lord had delivered them. Jethro rejoiced over all the goodness which the Lord had done to Israel in delivering them from the hand of the Egyptians. So you see this situation where Moses comes back and he wants to talk to Jethro. He wants to tell him everything that has just happened. And look at Jethro's reaction. Rejoicing. Hold on to that for just a few minutes. We go a few verses down later and we pick up around verse 17. In verse 17 we see this. It says, Moses' father-in-law said to him, the thing that you are doing is not good. You will surely wear out both yourself and these people who are with you, for the task is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. Now listen to me. I will give you counsel, and God will be with you. You be the people's representative before God, and you bring the disputes to God. Then teach each of them the statutes and the laws, and make known to them the way in which they are to walk and work the work they are to do. So now you see this relationship where now Jethro is giving some information back to him. He's giving him some guidance in this situation about something that he should do. So you see a relationship growing even more and more between Moses and Jethro because of the relationship. You see Moses first come and talk about all these things and the rejoicing that takes place by Jethro. Now Jethro has to step up and say, this stuff that's going on that you're doing, it's not good. Here's what you need to do. And he kind of gave him some advice. Now let's go down a few more verses. Exodus chapter 18, verses 25 through 27. It says, Moses chose able men out of Israel and made them heads over the people, leaders of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and of tens. They judged the people at all times. The difficult dispute they would bring to Moses, but every minor dispute they themselves would judge. Then Moses bade father-in-law farewell, and went on his way into the land. So what you see happen now is you see an execution of what Jethro has told Moses. I said that a minute ago. I have a great relationship with my father-in-law. We can talk about things like this. I can ask his opinion about things. I can ask his guidance about things. And the relationship that I'm really talking about is a mentor-type relationship. A mentor-type relationship. We see the relationship they have with each other. We see how they respond to each other. Throughout the Bible, there are many examples of mentors. You see how Eli mentored Samuel, and then Samuel mentored Saul and David. You see how Elijah mentored Elisha. Elisha mentored King Joash. You see Daniel, how he mentored Nebuchadnezzar, which was really a neat situation to see how that all played out. Mordecai, one of my favorite stories to think about Esther. Mordecai mentored Esther. And you see how Esther was put in a situation, as it says, for such a time as this, to be able to do something great. We see Priscilla and Aquila, how they mentored Apollos. You know, Apollos was one that taught greatly. He taught well, and people listened to him. But there were some things that maybe he was having trouble with, and so Aquila and Priscilla took him aside and said, maybe here's what we need to work on. And so they did that. And finally, if we want to talk about the ultimate mentor of all, we look at Jesus Christ. He mentored those disciples that were with him all the time. There were times that he would have to correct them. There were times he would encourage them. There were times that, there was disappointment. You see, tonight what I'm wanting us to see is the importance of mentoring and teaching those who are younger. Titus does a pretty good job at this. If you'll turn over to Titus chapter 2, we're going to read these first several verses together and look at them. Titus chapter 2, verses 1 through 8. Titus 2, verses 1 through 8. It says, "But as for you, speak the things which are fitting for sound doctrine. Older men are to be temperate, dignified, sensible, sound in the faith, in love, and perseverance. Older women likewise are to be reverent in their behavior, not malicious gossips, nor enslaved to much wine, teaching what is good, so that they may encourage the young women to love their husbands, to love their children, to be sensible, pure, workers at home, kind, and being subject to their own husbands, so that the word of God will not be dishonored. Likewise, urge the young men to be sensible. In all things, show yourself to be an example of good deeds, with purity in doctrine, dignified, sound in the speech, which is beyond reproach, so that the opponent will be put to shame, having nothing bad to say about you." You see, in this passage, you see four distinct groups of people talked about. You see the older men, you see the older women, and you see about the younger men and the younger women. You see the relationship there is how the older are supposed to teach the younger. But what is the number one way that you see in this passage that they're supposed to teach? If you go back and look at the passage, look down, and let me call emphasis here too, where it says, "Likewise, urge the young men to be sensible." We see a break there. And we see where it says, "In all things, show yourself to be a good example." So what's happening is the writer's saying here, here's the things that you need to be doing. Here's the examples that you need to be set. But the way you teach these to the younger people is by that example. You see, we can't teach younger people without a relationship, and we can't teach younger people without an investment of time towards that person. And that's what this text is talking about, the older versus the younger. Scott, what's your point? Here's my point. A few years ago, the Board of National Association of Evangelicals, what it is it's kind of an umbrella grouping representing 60 denominations and dozens of ministries. Among them, they passed a resolution, and the resolution was this. It was a resolution deploring the epidemic of young people leaving the evangelical church. The epidemic of young people leaving the church. You see, between ages 17 and 19 is where this huge drop takes place. Our study was one of those, the study that I read about was one of those that those who attended regularly at least a year in high school. So some of the examples you see represented, they're going to say that these numbers are a little bit off, but let's talk about them just a minute. What the research that they had said was this. It said that 80% of young people who dropped out of the church said they did not plan to do so during their high school years. It's not that they just outright rejected the church. What we see is teenagers leaving because of just different disagreements that they have in their lives, the things that come up. And for the most part, we just see them lose interest in what they're doing. What does the epidemic look like? It looks like this. 20% of college students who leave the faith planned to do so while they were in high school. Maybe they were in a situation where mom and daddy made them go to church every day. And so 20% of them made up their mind in high school, look, when I leave home and I go off to college, I'm done with this stuff. I don't want to have anything more to do with it. Another situation you see is like I just mentioned, that there was 80% that really intended to stick with their faith, but they lost their way. Some statistics will say that between 30 and 60%, that's a huge number of youth group graduates who abandon their faith, they sometime return back during their mid-20s. It's a concern to me. You know, after being in youth ministry as long as I have been, you know, I'm getting to where I see a lot of these 20s come back, which is great. But I worry about the ones who don't. And what I believe is it's time we've got to stop shaking our heads with angst and disappointment when we hear of one of our teams that's left the church. And we need to stand up with an attitude that we need to do something about it. Now, I can throw a lot of numbers at you tonight, and it not mean a whole lot. So I'm going to do something a little bit different. Here's what I need. I need all of our kids ages 11 through 18. 11 through 18. I need all of you to come up here and stand with me for just a minute. If you don't come, yes, I will call you by name. So you might as well just go ahead and avoid and they're going to help me out, because if they see that you didn't get up, they're going to call you out too. So y'all just back up a little bit. Let's make some room. Make some room. Now, I want you to ask yourself in your mind, which one of these is worth losing? Which one of these teenagers' soul is not worth more than the other? Because until I put faces with these statistics, it doesn't mean a whole lot. If statistics are true, $60 to 70% of these kids will walk out that door and never come back. If we believe that. So maybe it looks something like this. Y'all don't know where room 206 is? Yeah, that way. See, I ain't scared. I'll call them out. Get a little choked up here. How different does that statistic look now? Does it grab your attention at all? That we had an awesome group standing up here knowing that if these statistics are true, when these kids right here hit 18 years old, this is what we've got left. Why do we continue just to shake our heads and just shake it with disappointment and just not like it? Why will we not do something about it? All right, y'all go sit back in here. I'm going to tell you, that bothered me. I looked out there just now at several of y'all with tears in your eyes. I had a lump in my throat watching these teenagers walk out. Now, some of you dealt with it okay because you looked at it and said, oh, this is just a visual. It's okay, it ain't real. It's not real. But it's real. It's real. Now I'm going to go weird for you just a minute. Why didn't any of y'all stand up and stop them? Was it because I didn't tell you to? I love these teenagers with all my heart. And I'm tired of seeing them graduate and leave the church. And I'm asking you for help. Because you see, we as a church can do great things. We can do great things when we're together. Statistically, there were 4 factors that they found. This article was in Christian Living Today. that they did all this extensive research of over 27,000 students. And there was 4 factors that were huge in determining which teenagers stayed. Number 1, they said, I wanted the church to help guide my decisions in everyday life. And this was before they were 18 years old. Students making these statements before age 18. They wanted help making decisions. Number 2, my parents were still married to each other and both attended church. Number 3, the preacher's sermons were relevant to my life. And I just have to throw this out there. A preacher's sermons will never be relevant if they're not here. So vital, so important to be here. You never know what lesson's going to prick their hearts. After teaching and preaching as long as I have, it baffles me. I taught a class yesterday at Faulkner, and I walked out. I even was talking to my wife. She said, how'd your class go? I said, terrible. It just didn't feel right. It wasn't good. I said, it just didn't feel like anything fit. I just didn't think it went well at all. But then I was talking to one of the guys in charge. He said, man, I heard it was great. You never know. And so oftentimes we get this idea and this attitude that, well, maybe what they're preaching on tonight or what is, it's not really, relevant. But we never know. Number 4, one of the most important ones to me, says that it had at least one adult from the church made a significant investment in me personally and spiritually. They made an investment. These teenagers hear me use the word investment all the time. They hear me say it all the time because I want them to invest in each other. Why? Because that's how relationships grow. When we as adults are willing to invest spiritually into these kids, it's going to have lasting consequences. It's going to have lasting effects. So what do we do now? The phrase, one of the paragraphs I put in here says, drop out doesn't have to be a key word. We can replace it with something far better. When teenagers see an active, practiced faith in their parents and other positive examples at church, they will stop being dropouts and start being a disciple. You see, this discipleship program that is coming in this near future is an opportunity for you to exercise faith out loud. It's an opportunity for you to exercise faith in front of other people, namely those young people that are watching. You never know how much they're looking. But there were 3 things that they said, suggestions that they made. It said this. Number 1, disciple, disciple, disciple. It said if your student ministry is a 4-year holding tank with pizza, don't expect adults to stick around. If, however, they see biblical teaching as relevant and they see the church as essential to their decisions, they stay. Parents, you hold that key. So many people in the lives of your student put forth the effort to prepare for a Bible class only for kids to go home and tell mommy and daddy it's boring. The Word of God's not boring. It's one of the most amazing books. It is the most amazing book ever written. And when we allow our kids to do a lot of times, and as I see, we allow them to show up to go to this fun thing or that fun thing, but when there's a Bible study to be had, you can't get more than a dozen kids here. We have got to be able to have the opportunity through Bible class, through Bible studies, through our devotionals that we have. We've got to have opportunities to do that. Number 2, it says, have a home with committed Christian parents. USC did a study that was referenced, said that 74% of married couples who both evangelicals also had kids were evangelical. This person says, I was raised by a single mom who loved the Lord, and I'm so thankful for those who do. But parents together make a significant statistical impact. And number 3, main reason I put this one in here, it said, recognize that it takes a church to raise a committed young adult. it makes my heart heavy when I think about those three words there, committed young adult. It says, involve adults in the discipleship process. It says, the writer says, this is where students, youth ministers, volunteers, and other adults being invested in their lives and the teenagers can be so important. The dropout numbers aren't as bad as you think, but one is way worse than none. So what I'm talking to you about tonight is I am trying to implore you tonight. I'm trying to beg you tonight. Use the words that some of the disciples used when they wrote the Bible. They beseeched people with a strong urging. We're going to start our mentor program again. Last year it fell through because I had 21 adults sign up to say they would mentor one of our teenagers. 21 people. That didn't even cover the junior and senior class, and we had a small senior class. What I'm asking you is I'm asking you to make an investment into our students. I'm asking you to invest in them, to put forth that effort. When you walk out that door tonight, there's a table that I'll be standing beside. It'll have a place where you can sign up to be a mentor. I'm asking you to come up there and sign up. If you don't sign up, I'm probably going to walk right up to you and ask. That way you have to tell me no face to face. Because I'm very passionate about this. I'm passionate about our teenagers becoming Christian adults. I'm passionate about them growing up in the faith. I'm passionate about them learning to have a spiritual relationship with God Almighty. There are a couple of things you're going to have to do. Yes, you're going to have to fill out a background check. But when I read that, I think about Naaman. You know, that servant looked up at Naaman and said, Master, if they'd asked you to do something great, wouldn't you have done it? There's no doubt in my mind, if I ask any one of you in here tonight to drive 5 hours away to a college where one of our students was struggling, I don't think anyone in here would turn me down. But I'm asking you to do something here. So what if you have to fill out a little bit of paperwork? It's all for the good. Every year I hear excuses. Yeah, I'm going to pick on you a little bit. Every year I hear excuses. Excuses like, my job just has me too busy. I know busy. If you don't think I know busy, ask my wife. But yet I still try to attend to 110 of our teenagers. That's grades 6 through 12. A lot of people say, I don't have time, or my kids keep me busy enough, or my grandkids are the ones I'm mentoring. That's good. But I still have 110 that need help. I have 110 kids. I have 3 kids of my own at home. But yeah, I'm still trying to do this. You know, I kind of chuckled when I thought about this one. Sometimes people say, you know, I just don't really know what to say. I don't know what to do. So I'll tell you what, here's what I'll do. You know, when you become a youth minister, you get a manual that tells you everything to do. The same one is sitting beside the one you get as a parent. You know, when you bring that kid home from the hospital, they give you a little book that tells you what to do. Yeah, those 2 books are, you're catching my sarcasm, I hope. I'm going to tell you, in 18 years, I still make mistakes, and I make a lot of them. But these kids know I love them. And they know my heart is pure, and they know my intentions are good, even though I might mess it up every now and then. So I'm asking you. I'm just asking you to rise up and not be a village to raise a child, but to be a church that raises a child. I've got 3. And nothing pains me more at the thought of worrying about my own 3. So when I see these teenagers, their smiling faces and everything, I'm asking for your help. And I'm going to help you out with one more thing. If you don't want to be a mentor, just tell me. Don't give me an excuse. If I walk up to you, just look at me and say, no, I'm not interested. Because I'll take that a whole lot better. But I'm asking you not to. I'm asking you to say yes to helping these teenagers grow. This is not so much a lesson that you would preach to encourage people to change their lives. but it is a lesson that causes a lot of pain for folks. So here's what we're going to do. In just a minute, Hinton's going to lead us in a song. And if you need prayers of the church, maybe you've got something difficult going on, and you had it on your heart anyway, and my lesson had nothing to do with it, then I'm going to encourage you to come when he sings this song. But if you're a parent that's worried about your children, maybe your child is one of these statistics, and you want prayer for them tonight, I'm going to ask you to come on down here, and we're going to pray over them. We're going to pray about them. When I was reading through the research, and it was talking more about things that help to shape kids' faith, number one on the list was prayer. These are kids saying what shaped my faith most was prayer. And that's probably the thing we do the least. Number two on there talked about how family and friends were so important. Well, we're among family, and we're among friends, and we can pray together. So if you've got, a young person that's one of your children that you want to pray for tonight, then we'll pray over them. We'll pray for them, and we'll mention them by name. If you want to do that, if you have not been baptized, I'd never want to fail to mention that. We've had several baptisms this summer, and oftentimes I hear this comment of, well, I don't really want to be baptized now because if I'm baptized, they're going to think I did it because everybody else was doing it. I wonder how they felt on the day of Pentecost when 3,000 people were baptized. You ever thought about that? You ever think one of them might have thought, no, they didn't think about that. They just knew what was right and they wanted to do it. So we have that opportunity tonight also. So tonight, one of those three things, if they fit you, I want you to come on down and while Hinton leads this song, and we'll take care of whatever needs you might have. Hinton.